All right, hello everyone. Today's I want to talk to you about emotional appeals and logical appeals. So what I did is I threw together a handout that I put on our Blackboard site, and I'm scrolling through it right now. And I just want you to be able to keep this handout as a reference guide as you develop your persuasive presentation, or what I'm calling the rhetorical situation. So in the rhetorical situation, or in persuasion, ultimately remember our goal is to change behavior. And if you remember from reading the lecture from the previous unit, behavior is all about manipulating logical components of attitude and emotional components of attitude. So in short, it's logic plus emotion equals behavior, and that's the formula I'd like you to know for persuasion. So what we need to do for this unit as we get ready for your next presentation is we need to explore, well, what are those emotional appeals and what are those logical appeals, and we're going to go through it right now. So to start, we have Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you may have seen this before in other classes. I'll try to be very brief. In Maslow's hierarchy, basically what he says is that human beings need each of these levels, or more specifically, each level is a prerequisite to the next level. So our goal, of course, is to get to the top of this pyramid right here. We want to be, that's what we should be doing right now in this classroom environment, virtual environment. We want to be making ourselves better. We're learning for the sake of improving ourselves. We make ourselves a better friend, a better partner, a better whatever. Okay, that's what it's all about. But in order to get there, we've got to have all of these other things first, which is kind of interesting. So Maslow's first appeal, or first hierarchy, is this physiological one, which is basically about food and sleep. So you know, for example, like if you go to school and your goal, of course, is to learn, if you are dead tired or really hungry, nothing else matters. I'm just tired, I need a nap. You know, we've all been in that cranky phase, I think, where you just need to sleep and nothing else matters. So we got to have that. We got to have that level met. If we meet that level, then we move up to the next one, which is the safety level. And that's about feeling good in your environment as well as in your mind and in your body. So I look at it as if, again, if my goal is to learn in the classroom, do I feel safe in the classroom? Do I feel safe in the hallways? You know, do I feel safe in my neighborhood? Do I feel safe at home? Do I feel healthy in general? And if I don't have any of those needs met, then again, I don't care about learning. I don't care about becoming a better person. I'm simply scared about something in my surroundings or something about my health. Now we have those first two met, physiological and safety, and then we go to the love and belongingness level, which Maslow said is about friends and family. We all want love. That's really all there is to it. And again, I look at it from a classroom perspective, just as an example. If I'm in a classroom and I'm trying to learn, I'm trying to become better at the top of that pyramid. If I'm a kid and I'm worried about friends, I don't have any, or even as an adult, if my relationships are struggling, then that's what I'm focusing on. That's what I'm thinking about, because I'm just, that's important. We got to have that, and it's almost important as having food and water. Isn't that interesting? I mean, we got to have love and belonging. We got to belong somewhere. Otherwise, we just don't care about anything on top of that pyramid here. All right, so let's say we do have love, we do have friendship. Our next level we need to get is to esteem, and Maslow said, well, this is about having respect for yourself, and this is about having respect for others. And that's quite simple. And it's always interesting to me to think, well, you can't develop then respect for yourself and respect of others if you don't have these other three levels met. Interesting, yes. And then finally we have the self-actualization level. That's the top of our pyramid here, and that is, again, it's moving from who you are to who you want to be. All sorts of little adjectives to describe it here. Sure, being creative, being spontaneous, solving problems, all those types of things, really important. So what we want to do here is apply that to persuasion, apply that to communication. So that's why I wanted to go through and define them first and give you some examples. Now let me talk about how they work in terms of persuasion. So these are emotional appeals. We call them motive appeals, and we're going to use each one. The physiological motive appeal deals with basic needs: food, water, sleep, and sex. Okay, that's why there's so much sex appeal in your advertisements. No one needs an attractive model to eat a cheeseburger for Hardee's, right? It's not logical, it's emotional. we have sort of a transfer of likability or favorability, if you will. That's why we put attractive people in advertisements. But basically, obviously, that's not what you're going for in a persuasive speech. You would say anything that might promise people more of their basic needs. If you did this, you'd have more money in your pocket, or you'd have more time on your hands. That's what we're talking about. That would be using the physiological mode of appeal, if you were to incorporate that into an argument. All right, then we have the safety mode of appeal. And the safety mode of appeal simply promises safety if you take the action that you're promoting. So the typical examples: keep criminals in jail, drugs away from our children, America's safe, etc. If you pick an argument in which the conclusion you believe would make people safer, then that's what you're going to focus on. You're going to use the safety mode of appeal, and it's an emotional manipulation. Sometimes even going the opposite route. It may not be ethical, but creating fear would be an emotional appeal that relates to the safety mode of appeal. You create a sense of fear or discomfort, and then you say, well, if you do this so that I'm asking you to do, then you'll feel safe, or more safe anyway. All right, then we have the belongingness mode of appeal, which works by employing the promises of love and friendship. I always thought this was a perfect example when it comes to colleges and universities. If you think about, if any of you have or are going to live at a four-year camp, a residential college community, for most people that's the first time away from home. And think about it: when you get away from home for the first time, there are going to be these organizations that will try to persuade you to be a part of them. And what do? Well, they call one another brother, they call one another sister in their fraternities and sororities. So it's the idea of creating that sense of family, that sense of belongingness. That's why these types of organizations are so successful. If your persuasive argument would connect people, unite people, bring people together in any way, then that's the mode of appeal you want to think about. Belongingness, promote that love and friendship. The fourth one is called the esteem mode of appeal, and it works by promising respect or envy. So today, if you say something has a special moral or ethical value, that's the way to do it. And a lot of the persuasive topics you can imagine, this would fit in perfectly. This is a higher moral ground. This is the high ethical standard. This is what we should be doing. That is right. In advertisements, you'll see it used in ways that are more envious, perhaps, than about respect. Think of automobile commercials that that make someone seem like they have a really high status if they own this vehicle. That's certainly using the esteem mode of appeal, and that's certainly an emotional manipulation. For your persuasive arguments, you want to think about people doing the right thing, the moral thing, the ethical thing. That's where you want to go. The final one is the self-actualization mode of appeal, and again, that relates to the top of that pyramid. And this is the promise that one can move from what one is currently to what one hopes to be. So think of hope and wish, dream fulfillment. These are your typical messages here are found in any message for higher education that will help you get to where you want to be. The military's be all you can be is a perfect example. If you were making a persuasive argument that basically, again, this would make that if your audience does what you want them to do, and if in doing so they become a better person, then stress that, and that's what's happening here. So when you incorporate these, one of the things I emphasize too is you can either promise the audience will get more, or they will lose some of these needs that they don't. So again, even stressing that you might lose would be an appropriate way to do it. Let's talk about logical appeals very briefly. I'm trying to keep my online lectures short for you. I know it's different watching these online. You're probably distracted by Facebook or something right now too, right? No. All right, so stay with me. Logical appeals, we could have dozens. I narrowed it down to 3 that I want you to use, and they're super simple. You already use them. We're just putting a name to it. We have an argument by example. It means every time you make an argument, you're going to list for me several examples. You can read through that. Every time you make an argument or a claim, give us multiple examples that back it up. That's all it is to it. Another way to do a logical appeal is to use an argument by analogy. Again, you can read through this on your own and do so, but essentially it's making a comparison that is logically soothing, that makes sense to us. And the third one is using sources. Arguments by authority, cite an expert source, and you already know you need to do that. Let's take a look at the overall advice. Let me stress this here and try to wrap it up in 30 seconds. Every argument you make should include examples and authorities. So read through that, make sure every argument you make, lots of examples and sources. Some arguments should include analogies when appropriate. It's not going to happen every time. One good analogy in your presentation as a whole would be great. And then when it comes to emotional appeals, you want to be subtle. You don't need to stress, this is the self-actualization mode of appeal. Instead, you stress what that appeal is actually doing. Not every point needs an emotional appeal. Rather, one or two would be appropriate throughout the entire presentation. So focus on that, focus on what works the most, and be subtle about it by promising what that particular mode of appeal actually promises. All right, take a look at your speech requirements, get on the discussion board, make sure you sign up for a topic right away. Let me know if you have questions, and we'll see you soon.